Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host Didi, and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the regulation and structural changes that FIA has made or is looking to make for the 2022 season. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, it's great to have you back, and we are just a week away from basically the F1 season kicking off, and there's a whole lot of news that came in last week. How excited are you?
I can't believe that we are just a week away. I still feel okay. There must be a longer winter break, or there must be some time. But obviously, the first session in Barcelona starts in 1 week, and now that I realize it, that the cars have all been launched. So yes, the Formula One season is right around the corner for us, and obviously, with the new regulations coming in, with the new cars coming in, I can't be more excited.
I couldn't agree more. But, obviously, the exciting news has been the car launch, and there has been a lot of chatter with everything that has been happening. And I just can't stop looking at that Ferrari. The more I look at it, the more I keep looking at it. But that is not what we're here for. So let's talk about the structural and regulation changes that have been proposed and made by the FIA, right? So let's look at the structural changes that the FIA has made, which is basically a direct result of what happened in Abu Dhabi. And let's dive right into the most juicy structural change that has been made. Obviously, Michael Massey has been removed as a race director, and it has not been confirmed whether he will be a part of he'll be a part of the governing body, related with F1. Taking his place will be Niels Wittich and Eduardo Freitas, who have recently worked in the World Endurance Championship and DTM respectively, and they will alternate as the race director across the season. And more importantly, in my opinion, they will be assisted by Herbie Blash, who will be returning to F1, having previously acted as a deputy to Charlie Whiting, who was the race director until a couple of years ago as a permanent senior advisor. What are your thoughts, Vedant? Because let's not overlook the fact that both the new appointed race directors have had a very controversial season in ending themselves in 2021 in DTM. If you remember what happened with
Yeah.
Liam Lawson and Kevin van der Linde, and then in the WEC series with the Porsches and the
Porsche and
Ferraris.
Ferraris, yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? And especially the fact that they'll be alternating when, especially, we are looking for stability in this governing body and consistency.
That was my first concern. That race directors alternating is going to be an issue. There's going to be inconsistency, which we have already seen from FIA. But of course, both Niels and Eduardo are respected race directors. They are experienced. They are like the drivers themselves respect them a lot. So, and they are harsh. They are fair and harsh. So it would be a good. I mean, it is a good step in a way to move on from the horrors of Abu Dhabi. But then again, the the alternative aspect of this is not what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely begs the question whether the FIA has made the right decision to alternate race directors when we are actually looking for consistency with the rules that are being applied, and especially with the changes that are being made to the sporting regulation and the new technical regulations. You would expect that they would have, wanted some consistency across the board. Now we'll come to Michael Massey in a second, but before that, I would like to add that that is not all. That is not all the entirety of the structural changes that FIA have made. Obviously, the two race directors will be starting in Barcelona itself. And the first order of business, as they have pointed out, would be track limits. However, they will also have a virtual team per se that will be assisting them. They won't be with the race director in mission control or race control, but they'll be basically located outside the track and will be in contact with the race directors and stewards uh, who will be on track. So I think that is a great addition to the structure. And I think that'll allow to take off the load from these race directors and basically distribute the responsibilities of race management across the board, and hopefully allow everybody to come together and execute every race and whatever that is required with absolute perfection and consistency, time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this after Abu Dhabi, that the biggest, and I mean during the entire season actually, that the biggest concern right now is the load of responsibilities and lack of assistance the race director has. So this new virtual team will obviously, I mean, and the uh, Herbie Blash as a deputy would obviously help them a lot. The less load, the less pressure these race directors have, they will be able to operate clearer and more freely. And yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, and like you pointed out, the appointment of Herbie Blash. I'm not sure what happened 2 years ago, and now that Herbie Blash is back, it begs the question why he wasn't in an advisory role with Michael Massey. Maybe that could have saved Michael Massey the pain that he has endured over the last year or so. And also, I mean, I am personally surprised why Michael Massey was not retained. Yes, there were a lot of questions, and I think, after the news came out that Michael Massey had been removed, I think there was a lot of support for him saying that maybe that was not the right answer given the fact that Michael Massey has already been in the sport. So why do you think, this action was taken? A lot of people have speculated that there might have been more reasons, behind the scenes, which led to Michael Massey being removed from his current role. But what are your thoughts on this? Because my opinion was they should have retained Michael Massey and simply added on Herbie Blash as a senior advisor and had and still have that extra team that they have added as a virtual race control or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both ways. Michael Massey had experience in Formula One as a Formula One race director for a few years, and he had done a decent enough job, except for some issues here and there, but it was not as controversial before, like till 2020, basically, right? So, but I think in the end, FIA took the decision based on the fact that if Michael Massey stays, it will still be a spot on the sport per se. The ghost of that incident would carry on with the sport. You know what I mean, right? So
Yep, yep.
so I think
And definitely that is
that
one.
might have been the thinking behind it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that is definitely one way of looking at it. Obviously there have been people who've come out and said that it almost seems like because especially people who really wanted to see Lewis Hamilton win and who felt like he was robbed of the championship have questioned a little bit whether we need to go back and investigate what happened and maybe the championship title should be handed over. Obviously, we're not going to get into that, but it would seem that rolling this head has also put a question mark on what happened last season, even though it seems that the community has started to move on after the recent launches of the cars and have started looking ahead to the 2022 season. Now, amongst these changes, obviously, we also have the change where race control cannot be radioed directly by the sporting directors or by any team members. So I think that is a great rule change. I think that was pretty clear cut, no questions asked. But amongst the changes that have been proposed to these regulations, there are a number of changes that have been proposed for the safety car restart regulations. And currently, with the sporting regulations released last Friday, it seems that the change that has been made to the safety car restart regulation is not complete in a way. Obviously, I think someone from the FIA came out and said that they'll be proposing more changes regarding safety car restarts and whatnot. But currently, the state it is in, it doesn't seem like it is a great change, and we definitely will need more in order to have a concrete way of going about these restart procedures once again. Now, the way it reads is basically that lap cars, whenever the lap cars may now overtake messages shown, the safety car will pit the lap after, as long as it is safe and not said otherwise by the race director. Now, this raises the question whether or not all lap cars need, it says any lap cars, but that raises a question that, whether or not all lap cars still need to, unlap themselves before the safety car goes in. And this can basically create different scenarios which might not end well for competitors and can raise even more question marks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as we were talking about the example for it, that if so, basically, Before this, the rule was that each car had to be unlapped, each lap car had to be unlapped, and now the rule just says that the safety car will go in. So there might be chances that some cars stay behind, some lapped cars stay behind, and some lapped cars stay between the leaders, and that is the situation that you are talking about, and that obviously will be a great disaster for Formula One once again. So I hope
Yeah,
they do rectify that. I hope that they, you know, change that to a more concrete and more fluid solution. And yeah,
yeah, it definitely creates a huge gray area from a sporting regulations point of view. But anyway, they have said there'll be more news regarding this. There'll be more changes, so we'll wait for that before we make any concluding comments about it per se. Among these changes, coming from 2021, has been there has been another change regarding the points. No points will be awarded unless a minimum of 2 laps have been completed by the leader without a safety car or virtual safety car intervention, which means you need at least 2 green flag laps in order to be awarded any points. So if less than 25%, but more or equal to 2 laps have been completed, the points will be awarded to the top five, which will go from 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. If 25 to 50% of the race is completed, we'll have points for
the top nine, top
top
nine.
9, top 9, and it'll go from 13, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if we have 50 to 75% of the race completed, we'll have points for the top 10. That will go from 19, 14, 12, 9, 8, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. I think that is a good change after what happened in Belgium last year. But other than that, I don't think there's another comment that we need to add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially the minimum 2 laps rule was vital for this. The point system is a secondary to it, but the minimum 2 laps rule was vital for it. And while they were doing it, they might as well make it a complete change and take us 2 steps forward instead of just one. So that
Yep, yep.
yeah,
I think the more important, issue that had come out of what happened in Belgium was the fact how FIA handled, their interaction with the audience that was present at the racetrack. So I
yeah.
hope they do something regarding that too to help, keep the audience updated, I guess, and have a better way to, go about managing these situations so that the audience that has come there to watch the race does not feel as disappointed as they did last time, or have better information at least to base their decisions on. So I think that will be also interesting to see if there's some evolution of rules and regulations that happens in that area. One last thing that has been changed from what happened last year has been that the drivers have been given a bit more leeway, given the longer season, and now they will only get a penalty after they have been given 5 reprimands instead of the 3. Now it is interesting because last year we pointed out in Saudi Arabia, Lewis could have had his third reprimand there and would have had to start the final race of the season from the back of the grid. And similarly, I think for Max at some point in the season he was very close to the 3 reprimands. So it's very interesting to see how FIA have gone about it, and clearly they're expecting drivers to butt heads even more than usual, given the change that they have made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, these rules, the 3 reprimand rule, is, I'm not sure, but it must be from the era when Formula One had 18 to 19 races per season, right? And now we have 22. So I think it was only logical to make that change. And more so with the new cars coming in, there might be, like drivers might take some time to getting used to the cars as such, and this gives them a bit more leeway and bit more space to actually give their all.
Absolutely. Now let's look forward to the 2022 rules and regulations that are coming in. Not because of a reason, but well, some of them still might have a reason, but it's just the rules and regulations that have been changed for the upcoming era. Now the biggest change, in my opinion, is the fact that cars making Q3, cars qualifying into Q3 will no longer have to start on the same set of tires as they set that they used to set their fastest time in Q2. So basically, a free tire choice for all. What do you think about that, Vedant? Because my opinion on it is, I will miss the strategy aspect to it, especially given last year. There was always an aspect where we didn't know whether Mercedes and Red Bull would start on the softs or the mediums, and there was all because the cars were so closely matched. even in the midfield, that people like Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas couldn't often gamble on a medium and had to take the softs in order to get into
Yeah.
Q3. And I'll miss a little bit of that, but I wouldn't go ahead and comment, anything. Make a hard opinion about it and say anything on the lines of that this is not a great change. I am willing to wait and see how this change affects racing overall this season.
Yeah, absolutely. The strategy aspect of it, and especially the qualifying strategy aspect of it, was tremendous. As you said, the midfield, the tight midfield, and making it to Q3 was vital, and that part obviously we'll all miss. And the offset between the front runners and the back markers running hards, the P11 guys running softs, and the front runners running mediums, that would be also missed. But I think uh, the biggest victim for this rule is basically the guys who qualify 11th and 12th, because they won't be
Yeah,
happy anymore. Like they won't
yeah,
even
absolutely.
they can't even find happiness anymore as such.
But I guess now it has become an all out shootout. Like the qualifying is qualifying now.
Yeah.
There is no other aspect to it. You have to qualify at the front, so everybody will be giving their best on those soft tires throughout the session, which is, I guess, a way for fans to see the cars go as fast as they possibly can for 1 hour straight away. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna wait and see how this change affects racing across the weekend. But there have been other major changes made to the race weekend schedule. Press conferences have been shifted to Friday from Thursday. So day one of the weekend would be Friday instead of Thursday. I think this is great news for the team, especially given the fact that we have multiple triple headers this season, and double headers are all across the calendar. Then the curfew periods are much longer, and due to these new cars, breaking breaking these rules also carry a heavier penalty, and the jokers at the same time have more flexibility. I don't know how to explain this, but basically it says that the jokers for breaking these are also increased to allow teams more flexibility and leeway based on whatever happens across the weekend. But overall, I think the good news from this is the fact that all the racing staff that is out there, the mechanics, the engineers, should get much more sleep throughout these race weekends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have been talking about this for the entire last season when we were talking about triple headers and double headers and the ever expanding Formula One calendar. So I think this was a great use of it, and when they reduced this free practice time on Fridays and Saturdays, the free time or the car development time per se on the Friday increased. And I mean, it is a step by step process from, like, what I'm thinking, but in the end, I think it's a great step for the teams, especially because
Yeah, and
if the teams can't perform on their best, the circus is not on its best, right? So yeah.
absolutely, and just to add a snarky comment to this, Franz Tost, I think I think over the last month came out and said that he would prefer something between 18 and 20 races,
Yeah.
which is not what he said last year when 23 race calendar was announced, and he said, those who can't live up to it
Yeah.
need not be in the sport. So, just putting it out there once again. Obviously, people have trolled it multiple times now, but even then. But in addition to all of this, more technical insight will be given to fans. So I think this is really exciting from a fan's perspective, especially for the fans who are interested in what goes behind, the engineering marvels that these cars are. And now teams have to let the FIA know what new parts they have brought, and they will have to show the cars before FP1 and qualifying with a senior team member telling them about the changes that have been made to the car and what is that development about. So it'll basically be a show and tell for the entire grid and the fans. From an engineering perspective, being an engineer myself, Vedan, I am very excited from a fan's perspective. Um, I will miss a little bit of that mystery that shrouds these developments.
Yeah.
But we'll see how I feel about it towards the end of this calendar year.
I mean, I think for me it's a great insight, because I'm not an engineer and I can't think on those terms, right? I can't think about like I know about aerodynamics now because I've been watching Formula One, but a lot of the fans don't know about the technical aspects of it as much. So I think when the senior personnel, and that's why the YouTube videos of the technical insights have been doing so well for Formula One. So I think it's a great way for fans who are not educated in these things to understand these things better.
Absolutely. And talking about technical things, gearboxes are now a restricted number component. So in a sense, they are treated like power unit elements, and the teams will have a pool of them rather than having to use them in a sequence for a certain number of events. Obviously, I think last season we saw a lot of teams, even Ferrari after Charles Leclerc had that crash, trying to decide on the gearbox and the engine and whatnot.
Yeah.
And in similar situations, and now they'll have to be even more wary of it, rather than just thinking about whether or not they can just make that change overnight. And then obviously penalties for issues remain at 5 places, so 5 place grid drop every time you go over the given number. But another, I guess, big news, not a big change, but a big news coming out of the announcements that have been made over the last week and a half is the fact that sprint will not be called qualifying anymore. Qualifying will be the 3-part fastest lap session, and the pole position will be awarded to whoever is fastest in qualifying on Friday, I guess, on sprint weekends. So more points are available in sprint weekends from 1st to 8th, and this year we'll be going to 3 sprint weekends unlike the 6 events that were proposed earlier, and we'll be going to Imola, Austria, and Brazil. How do you feel about that?
Well, firstly, I think for the record keeping purposes and the data purposes, I think this was a good step and the right step to give the pole position to the man, the fastest guy on in the 3-stage fastest lap session, basically. So yeah, I mean, it was a right thing to do. The fans were obviously not very happy about it last year, and that's about it.
No, but what do you think about having sprint races this year? And having the same number of sprint races as last year with, I guess, one venue change?
Yeah, well, it's not 2 venue changes. Imola and Austria both are new,
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
and Brazil is same. I mean, at least it's not more sprint races than was previously expected, right?
But at the same time, so they don't have more sprint races. They don't have no sprint races.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really do anything. I mean, obviously they're giving away more points. So that might, somehow encourage a little bit more racing for the midfield pack. But it doesn't really do anything for me, in my opinion, right? It's not really taking it a step forward and, giving us a greater understanding of how these sprint races are helping bring in more viewership, or whatever that may be, or creating better racing, because like I think Kunal pointed out in his previous podcast, that if the cars are more racy this year, they'll be racy regardless of what format they race in, whether that is sprint or the Grand Prix on Sunday. So it really doesn't do anything. It doesn't put faith in the fact that the cars are going to be more racy this season, and it also doesn't go out and explore what sprint races could do on a larger scale.
I mean, Formula One wanted to have 6 events, right? It's the teams and the negotiation between Formula One and the teams that broke off because of the financial
Cost cap.
aspects of it, right? So I think Formula One, in their own right, have put faith in it per se, because they wanted to go for 6 or 7 sprint events. But I think if they had not included any sprint events this season, that would have been a total U-turn and total reverse direction of what they are trying to do with experimentation and trying new formats and such. So I think 3 is so and so. It's not. I mean, it's no change. So yeah, no comments about it as such. I guess after saying all that.
Yeah. Yep. But that is basically the major chunk of the rule changes and the structural changes that the FIA have made so far for the 2022 season. But before we wrap up this podcast, without any last thoughts and maybe just touch upon anything that I might have missed during a conversation here.
Uh, well, I guess we covered everything, but I just want to say one thing about Michael Masi and the two new race directors coming in. So I read somewhere on the race or somewhere that the reason Michael Masi had so many responsibilities was because he took everything Charlie Whiting left behind. And Charlie Whiting had so many responsibilities because he picked up so many responsibilities along his huge career, right? So Michael Masi was under tremendous pressure to. I mean, he was race director. He was traveling to every new venue. He was traveling to every venue every weekend. He was traveling to Formula One venues when he should have been resting. He was, I think, single seat chairman on the single seater commission or something like that, and things like that. So even though we have even though we have two race directors, and that splits the responsibilities, I would have preferred that we have one race director in total control of Formula One, and the other responsibilities about the checking the venues, making sure everything's safe, like Saudi Arabia on the new venues, basically the single seater commission and all these things. That could have been given to other people, other senior people, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know about those responsibilities. What has happened to them? So, but yeah, I hope it has been handled properly.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point, and I'm not sure if FIA released the entire investigation and the findings of it. You know what I'm talking about, instead of just releasing what the changes have been made. So I'm not sure about that. But if they have released a document as such, I think it'll be interesting to go and see what those findings were and how did they come to those conclusions. And it almost seems that Michael Masi had to go the same way Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly had to go before Sergio Perez got that seat at Red Bull. It was just too much for one person, and it just had to happen almost. Obviously, there is more conversation around this issue that maybe FIA have done this to appease one of the bigger teams in Formula One and whatnot. But obviously, all of this is mostly speculation, and there's not much that we can really say about it. But definitely, I guess in some ways, our I don't want to say sympathies, but our heart goes out to Michael Masi, and I guess I hope he's still in some way involved with F1, because I'm pretty sure his input will still be valuable to those who are regulating the sport. But yeah, in our next episode, we'll be talking about the cars that have been launched for 2022 season and about the Andretti Global's bid to enter Formula One in 2024. So stay tuned for all the motorsport content. Thank you, Vedant, for joining me once again, and we'll catch you on the next one.